saying this. When you pull into an RV park, probably the most important thing that is announced and should be announced is that one of you or a partner needs to get out and guide you in. Ground control. Ground control is somebody on the ground who will direct you into the spot that you're going. I don't care if it's a pull-through. Most often as not, there are branches and all kinds of things that could gouge up the side of the vehicle. Ground control is the person on the ground who can see things you cannot see whenever you're driving the vehicle. Usually I take them through what I call hand gestures, and I do not have the hand gestures ready to go. Lane control. Lane control is centering yourself up in the lane. So many people, again, who are new to the RVing or driving an RV are scared of going into, those areas, those maintenance areas where they have the concrete partitions or pylons out in the road. My message is, if you have learned how to center yourself up in the lane, this should not be a problem. Centering yourself up in the lane is basically knowing where you are relative to the stripes. In a work zone, it is a matter of being sure of yourself, that you know from experience where you are in the lane and that you are safely in the center of it. This is experience, but those convex mirrors are excellent educational tools. As you drive along, if you take a look in your convexes, you can see the stripes on either side. The other educational thing is a rumble strip. Rumble strips, again, are educational, and with time, the experience, you can make sure that you know where you are in the lane. Nothing beats experience behind the wheel. I want to emphasize that over and over again. This is an individual out in the road. He looks like he's pretty much centered up. Then all of a sudden we see him drift over toward the stripe. Not dangerously toward the stripe, but he's too close to the stripe. Driving our RVs, we can be kicked around by the wind. A variety of factors can contribute to why we wander in the lane. But wandering in the lane is not too bad. It's when you wander out of the lane. This is whenever trouble occurs. Our hope is that, with time, you're going to get so experienced that, you know exactly where you are in the lane, and you can keep yourself centered up in the lane. Not a big deal in a car. It's a big deal, though, in an RV. There's an individual at one of the dealerships someplace in the U.S., and this individual puts dots on the windows to help people align themselves in the lane. And for a while, it's a great thing. It gives you a little bit of reassurance, but dots fall off. I don't like teaching with dots. I like to, get people behind the wheel and get educated with time, and experience, and through the convex mirrors and through rumble strips, that they know with time and experience where they are in the lane. I brag a little bit and I tell people that I can, if there's an alligator in the road, one of these casings of a tire from a truck that's been kicked off, I can get within 6 inches of that casing. How do I do it? Well, it's experience. I know where that tire is. Truckers, look at this guy. He's running pretty consistently on the left side of the lane, or at least appears to be consistently on the left side of the lane. Again, the job you have behind the dash is to keep yourself centered up, and you can. I can do it, George, is what the refrain that I'd like to hear from each of the women in the group. Signs in a car, are somewhat irrelevant, but in a vehicle of the size that we're driving, whether it's a fifth wheel or a motorhome, we have to pay attention to these signs. If it says 25 mile an hour curve, it means 25, not 30, 25. If you come to a 5-ton bridge and you're 17 tons, there's a problem, and you're going to have to deal with it. And if you approach it slow, you can again take corrective action. If it's an 80% hill ahead of you, be cognizant of it. How are you going to deal with it? You're going to shift down. Railroad crossings. When you come to a railroad crossing, I say slow up. I don't care what the heck's going on or where the railroad crossing is. You have no idea the amount of bump that you're going to encounter. Which brings up another subject, bumps. You know, when we see these signs on the side of the road, you know, there is the, oh, it's not a big deal. Sometimes bumps aren't a big deal. I wish there was a 5%, a 10% bump, you know, some indication of how severe the bump is. We had a bump when we were traveling one time, and it was a real 100%er. Everything in the closet got thrown on the floor. Bumps, again, pay attention to it. Accommodation is what I like to talk about because it is something that you need to expect. Accommodation is giving way to the less maneuverable vehicle, and in many cases that's us. We need the room. And whenever we do get to an intersection, as an example, and we need to make a wide swing with our vehicle, we are looking for, and I've dubbed the word accommodation, I like the word, we need accommodation from the people in the opposite lane. At on-ramps, it's a big deal to get accommodation. Accommodation is what people do to let us into the lane. If we're in the low-speed lane and somebody is coming off onto the main roadway from a ramp, we need to accommodate. Incidentally, coming down ramps, I really would like to emphasize that you start turning on your signal quite high in the ramp. In many cases, it will alert and wake up the person who is in the low-speed lane that we need accommodation. At intersections, this is a big deal. You know, we need a wide sweep. That black and white vehicle there, again, needs to, in some cases, pull out of our way. A gesture, a hand gesture out of the window, hopefully it's not responded to with an obscene gesture, but again, we need that individual to move out of the way. They need to accommodate our need to make a wide sweep. Any tight spot, we look for accommodation. In an RV park, sometimes we need accommodation from the vehicles around, that are in the park. Sometimes pickups, we find pickups, that are stretched or in the main part of the roadway in a park. We need accommodation from these people to get in and out safely. Again, I can. George, I want to emphasize that I can. I wish I was hearing that much more often. There's so many myths. As we sit around the campfire, we hear myths about, the car that passes, the car that was towed passing us up. Did it happen? No, maybe it did. But the reality is, if it strikes fear in your heart, remember we talked about that worry and the fact that we need to change that worry to concern. But the myths, that are promulgated, over campfires are something that I hope, you start putting in perspective. I have 2 books, that we like to advertise. One of them is by Neil LeCanter, one of the Escapee folks. Neil wrote the book. It is an excellent book, and it's called The Ultimate Survival Guide. I have 2 other books, that are put out by one of our instructors, and I proudly announce that he is an instructor. He calls his publications Drive Smart Publications, and it is how to deal with fifth wheels. One of them is dealing with fifth wheels, and one of them is dealing with motorhomes. I have both of them available. I don't typically sell them, but again, I will advertise and tell you how to get a hold of them. There's nothing that I can think of that beats behind the wheel assistance. Typically, we put on lessons across the country. They're typically 2 4-hour days. These 2 4-hour days are really meant to get you or any woman to the point that they are at least feeling comfortable behind the wheel and have the necessary knowledge to, again, drive safely. Proudly, we now have 30 instructors scattered across the U.S., all of them professionals. Most of them, again, are individuals who came from the trucking industry, gray line, or some teaching area in the automotive field. I speak highly of them, and we certify them as competent instructors. This is the end of the slides, and at this point I usually again emphasize the point and ask for questions and make the comment, and again ask for people, all the women in the group, to say I can. This is the end of this presentation.